Hey there, my name is Tracy Spears. I'm your host of Shift Out Loud and really head cheerleader for anybody that wants to play bigger. And speaking of playing bigger, my guest this week, you probably already know her because she was the very first guest on the podcast, but I do want to reintroduce her to you in a different way. And I want to introduce you with this soundbite. She said something in that first episode. I'm going to say it was one of the most commented things I've ever experienced as a podcaster. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit, what she said and how it was landing on people. And I'm going to ask for some more clarification on that. But let me tell you a little bit about Tricia Brouk. Tricia Brouk helps high performing professionals transform into industry thought leaders through the power of authentic storytelling. Her methodology centers around transforming her clients' authentic stories into an industry leading voice and commanding media presence to gain wider recognition and become a go-to expert in their field. Super weird to hear your own bio, isn't it?
It is.
Okay,
Still,
I got you.
always is.
I got you. Tricia founded the Big Talk Academy, where she certifies speakers in the art of public speaking. She's the executive producer of Speakers Who Dare, lots of other amazing things. But I'm going to cut to the chase and say this. Today is a super big day for Tricia Brouk because you're doing a book signing today. Her book, the name of that book is The Influential Voice, Saying What You Mean for Lasting Legacy. And it was the #1 bestseller on Amazon. Anyway, without further ado, my guest this week, Tricia Brouk.
Thank you, Tracy. And for those of you who are listening, what you're not seeing at the moment is we are literally sitting next to each other in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
I know that's so bizarre. You've never been to Oklahoma, first of all.
Have not?
And you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma to do a book signing. So, first of all, how are you finding Oklahoma so far?
Well, I'm loving Oklahoma. It's gorgeous. Everyone is super nice, very friendly. The food's delicious. And I'm here because you recommended me to the founder of the Magic City Bookstore. And I am so grateful that I get to do an in-person book signing for the first time because my book came out during the pandemic and everything was virtual.
Listen, and so a big shout out to Magic City Bookstore in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It is an icon. It is the gentleman that's going to be interviewing you, Jeff Martin, is the best in the business. So I'm super excited to be your warm up act for that because you got to get really ready for him. Like Rachel Maddow was here recently. And, Dave Sedaris will be here next week. So
Anna Garden was last week.
well done. You're doing a little homework. I like it. I like it. So there's so many directions I want to go in this interview. But the big question I want to just pose for you is you said in that first interview that you got to get out of the how business. And when you said that, and it was so casual and it was kind of, I knew it was monumental. I didn't know it would land in that way. So first of all, are you surprised that that was the thing people really connected to?
I was surprised. And when you shared with me that people were talking about loving getting out of the how business, I honestly, I believe that, but I don't remember actually even saying that.
Isn't that how that goes typically? Yeah. So, well, I'll remind you when you said get out of the how business, we were talking about goal setting. I know you know this, but how if you do get too connected to that process, let's talk about what happens. So if you are in the how does that, actually play out? That I obviously it throws up a bunch of roadblocks, but let's unpack that a little bit for the audience. Tell me more about why you believe you have to get out of the house.
Because our brains can't think big enough. And if we're constantly getting ideas or having desires and preventing ourselves from achieving those or having the universe bring them to us because we're wondering, how in the world will I ever do a book signing in Tulsa? How will that ever happen? If I had thought about that process, I wouldn't be here because I had yet to meet you. I had zero connection to Tulsa. I had yet to meet Jeff Martin. Did I desire to do an in-person book signing? Absolutely. And I visioned that as I was writing my book. I could never have imagined that there would be a pandemic and I would be forced to do virtual book readings where you can't touch anyone, you can't sign a book for anyone. Most bookstores didn't even know what Zoom was, so it was always a disaster.
That's true.
And so if I had gotten in the how business, how am I going to do an in-person book signing? It, I would never have been able to attract this experience in that moment.
So, do you believe that it creates too narrow of a path and then you would miss all the opportunities? Tell me more about that.
Two things: you miss the opportunities and you get in your own way.
Mm.
And I'll give you an example. We were talking about this last night at dinner. I wanted to go to Stevens College, which had a dance department. It was a private women's liberal arts college that was very expensive. I was going to MU, which was at the time, I think $5,000 a semester. And Stevens at the time was probably 25 or $50,000 a year or half a year. I can't remember. It was a while ago. And I thought, how am I going to go to Stevens College? So I was in the how business at that point. I mean, I was 19 years old. And my how was I knew that if I went to MU, the state school, full time, which was like $5,000 a semester or a year, whatever, I don't remember, I could take classes for free at Stevens. So that was my how am I going to do it? That is how we all think. What I didn't know was that had I simply applied to Stevens College, I would have gotten a scholarship because once I did, I did.
Mm.
So I was in the how business, which got me one foot in the door. But when I stopped being in the how business, then they gave me a scholarship so I could actually go to the school and not just take free classes. I got to leave MU. I got to graduate with a BFA in dance. So I was half in and half out of the how business at that point. And I really didn't completely understand how the universe and your desires and law of attraction worked until, 5, 7 years ago. So as a dancer who lives her life with grit, discipline, high risk tolerance, I was always in the how business. How am I going to get that next gig? How am I going to make it to New York? How am I going to dance with Baryshnikov? How am I going to tour Europe and get paid to dance? I was always thinking about the how. The moment I stepped out of that, everything became possible. And I'll give you another example. When I was 7 and decided to be a dancer and moved to New York City, my desire was to dance with Baryshnikov Misha. That was just a desire. I had no idea that I was manifesting it from that initial desire, that initial thought. Posters of him everywhere. All the dancers had posters of Baryshnikov, right? However, because I put that into motion with a desire when I was 28 and dancing with the Lucinda Child's Dance Company, we collaborated with Misha. So I got to dance with Baryshnikov.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, congratulations, by the way. I know that story, but
Thank
I
you.
love that story
Thank
every
you.
time
Thank you.
because there's very few people on that list, right?
There are. Well, you and I have a getting out of the how business story with your vision board.
We do. You tell her.
Okay.
This book blows my mind.
For those of you who don't know how Tracy and I met, it was from an ad on Instagram.
Literally scrolling through as I do at night, going through Facebook. I had put on my goal sheet for this year to do a TEDx talk. And
Which
that's
happened today, by the way. Everyone who's listening and watching, what is the date? November. It's November.
just today.
It's November 5th, and TEDx Deer Park Women just happened. Literally, we just watched the virtual TEDx event together.
Oh, I'm so excited.
So congratulations about that.
Thank you. And I will say that thank you. Thank you for so many reasons, but for that to happen here end of November in the beginning of the year. And I was like, I don't know how it's going to happen, but this is the year that it's going to happen. And every year before I got very prescriptive. So in every year before I would go, I want to do a TED talk. And I was trying to decide what I was going to do my TED talk about. How would I get on stage? What stage would I be on? I got so into the weeds of it that this year when I was like, it doesn't matter. I'm fucking doing a TEDx talk. And so I'm scrolling through the Facebook and literally there's a Facebook ad from you. I have answered, looked at, clicked on exactly 0 Facebook ads until I saw your ad. Your ad caught me because it said something about want to be on a TEDx stage. I was like, oh yeah, actually I do. So so I start going down the rabbit hole, and the next thing I know, I am on some online class with you, or
My
course with you.
master class. Yeah.
Yeah,
2-day master class.
which by the way, I highly recommend. And I got on there at first. I was like, oh, okay, I've been speaking for a long time, but I picked up a couple of things very quickly, and I thought, okay, I can learn something from her. So I'll keep going to the next step. So the next step ends today, or ended up with what happened today. I did do the TEDx talk. So to your point, I didn't even in the beginning know what the TEDx talk was going to be about. I didn't even know really until I'm going to say 3 months ago. Is that fair to say? You were there for that process. But I think I have thrown up all my own roadblocks in the past because I wasn't ready enough, or I can't do that. Every insecurity that I've ever had was coming out. Do I have an idea worth sharing? Like you do, like you start the sabotaging that happens when you're in the how business is what I look back now and go, man, I've wasted a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to get it perfect, trying to get it right instead of just beginning with the end in mind, which is what we know you're supposed to do. We've all been told that.
And having that trust and belief, right? My desire to dance with Baryshnikov was put into motion through the universe. And I didn't know it then, but I certainly know it now. And back to your vision board, however many years ago you created that, many of the things that you manifested are on there. And there's a from a magazine.
Mhm.
For those of you who don't know, I sign off Big Love. And it's in my email. It's how I sign off the podcast. And on the vision board says Big Loves.
Again, listen, I had chills because I didn't even realize that until, I don't know, we've been working together 3 or 4 months. And I was starting the podcast, and I pulled out the vision board, and yeah, I'm not going to lie, it was in my closet. And everybody kept saying, do you have one? And then somebody said, prove it, put a picture of it. So I was like, okay. So I pulled it out. So I'm literally hammering it up in my office. And right in front is Big Love in your colors. What's weird is even the color of well, I just do a picture of this, of your logo. And I just stared at it. And then I started laughing. And I was like, of course. Of course it's on there. Right?
That's the trust that's required when you make the decision to get out of the how business. If
Mm.
you can think it, it is meant to be for you. If you have the desire for something, it is absolutely meant to be for you. And when you start getting into the how is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? How am I going to do all the things so it does happen? Now, I'm not saying that you don't want to take action and that you aren't proactive in achieving your goals and
Sure.
dreams. However, when you're out of the how business, it's bigger than you can imagine. We talked yesterday, Tracy, about doing a dreamstorming session instead of a brainstorming session, because I think brainstorming is all about being in the how business. Let's brainstorm all the ideas that we want and determine how we're going to achieve them. Let's dreamstorm everything that we desire and let the universe take care of the how.
Listen, that's a shift. That is a shift out loud right now. I'm having that moment because when you are brainstorming, it is things that are already in your brain, and it is limiting. And when you're there's something about just saying dream as big as you can that people go, well, I want to win the lottery. Like you immediately, no, what would those big things? But you can't do that under the context of what your existing information is. Ooh, I love that.
When I thought about how I want to impact the world beyond speakers, mentoring, writing plays, books, documentaries, I really want to affect policy change. I really, really, I don't want to run for office because I just don't get paid enough to do that.
Fair.
And
It's a pay cut.
and my husband, made me promise not to run for office.
Shout out to Joe. Good decision. But you'd be great. And so would he, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. And I still want to affect policy change. And how do I do that? Well, let the universe take care of that for me. So I'm out of the how business. And guess what happens? Catherine Garcia's campaign manager reaches out to me to support her in the debates for the mayoral candidacy of New York. Now, she did lose to Eric Adams. However, she transformed into a far more powerful, confident speaker in our process. And there will be policy change made because of her increased confidence. And she's so smart and so incredible. And I had something to do with that. And I feel so proud of that. So I just keep putting out there, I want to affect policy change. Of course, I can vote. That's how I can be involved. You can vote.
Sure.
And I know that there will be more people in the public eye and public officials who will be reaching out to me because it's a desire I have. So my job is to not worry about the how, it's to be ready. It's to constantly be in a state of readiness.
And I think you're saying something though that people, I want to dig a little bit deeper. So I want the audience to get the part that what you're not saying is, yep, I'm just going to dream it and it's all going to happen. What you're saying is, oh, there's more to it than that. So let's unpack. It isn't just, oh, that's what I want. That's what I want. And you have to, I'll say my thought on this is you have to pay attention to the things that are connected to that.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times people say they want something, but then they're not paying attention to what they're not present. Like a lot of people are, I think the presence piece of to be mindful and to, I see your ad and I'm like, okay, well, I want this. So I need to go through that open door. Like you have to take the action to go through the open door, whatever the door is that opens. A lot of people, doors are flying open and they are not present enough to even see it. So it's two things. It's knowing that it's the dreaming, but it's the paying attention along the way.
Without question, it's the dreaming, it's the paying attention, it's the becoming conscious. And here's another story. I just shared this in a newsletter, and which you responded with one word. Wow. That was your response to this newsletter. 27 is a big number for me. And also being aware of my surroundings is a big number. I'll talk about 27 in just a second. One day, several months ago, I'm walking down the street. I had just had a conversation with my friend Lisa, who was in a dance company with me. She happened to also be the best woman at my wedding. We're very close. She no longer lives in New York. And we were just reminiscing when we were in the company together. And we started talking about the other company members, Chris, Ben, Eric. So that was the day before. Joe and I are walking home from the park on a Sunday morning, and we run into Eric and his dog. So Eric and Joe and I have a conversation. Oh my gosh, it's so great to see you. Have you seen Chris in a while? Nope, haven't seen Chris in a while. We think she moved out of New York since the pandemic. So he keeps going. We keep going. Guess who we pass after Eric, continuing on the way home? Chris's husband, Jay. Jay, how are you? How's Chris? We're here for 2 weeks. Amazing. So Jay goes home. Next part of the day, I text Chris. She doesn't respond. I'm at the Time Warner Center and I run into Chris.
What?
Chris and I have a conversation. We make plans for lunch on Friday. We sit there. Friday comes. We have a long, beautiful lunch. We're laughing. We're reminiscing. We're talking about the modern dance teacher for the ballet teacher for all the modern dancers, Steve Gottheiner. He came up. We talked about him. And she said, I heard that he had a stroke and that he's teaching online from now on, and I was like, oh, that's really heartbreaking. I haven't seen him. I wonder what he's up to. I wonder how he is. And we had no idea. So Saturday, this all happens within 3 days, everybody. Saturday, Joe and I are going down to Wayne Dyer's daughter, Sage. Dr. Wayne Dyer, for any of you know, he's an incredible speaker, guru. He passed not too long ago. And his daughter, Sage, and Serena were on my podcast to talk about their book, The Knowing, which is what we're talking about right now. Sage has a restaurant in the East Village. Joe and I were headed down there to have dinner. We're walking on 6th Street. This is a day after Chris and I had a conversation. We could have chosen any street in New York City to get to this restaurant. But I said, let's walk down 6th Street. Guess who I see? Janet, who was in the Lucinda Childs dance company with me. I say, Janet, she has no idea who I am. It's been that long. Janet, it's Tricia. How are you? Oh my gosh. I look down. I have goosebumps right now. It's Svi in his wheelchair.
Wow. Wow.
That is how to pay attention. That is why we must always stay energetically connected to what's in front of us because it is in front of you. I was able to see Spee in his beautiful smiling face and give him a hug and see that he's okay. And of course, he asked me, are you still dancing? And I said, Spee in my mind.
Not enough. I think though that feels if you're as you're listening to this, people are like, wow, is that a coincidence? And so I don't believe in coincidences. I don't know how you feel about that. You would not, I do believe this, had you not had some intention around that, you probably walked by those people before and didn't notice them, didn't see them, didn't right? Like so
I don't know. I think I do notice people and I do connect to people that way. And even on the way here,
okay.
when you picked me up from the airport, by the way, Tracy Spears is an excellent host. She picked me up at the airport. We've been going to amazing dinners. The office is amazing. I've met the dog, the wife, everything's amazing.
Yes. Thank you. Not in that order. The wife was number one. Just to
That is
clear.
true. That is true.
She needs her due for
Yes.
sure.
So the trip here was also very much intentional and meant to be and perfect. And that is because I stepped back from how is this trip going to go?
Mm.
How am I going to make the most out of this trip? And that's different from setting myself up for success. The getting out of the how business when it came to the success of this trip allowed me to not be concerned when there was an accident on the highway on the way to the airport. Oh no, how am I going to make the flight? Oh no, how am I going to? It will be the way it's meant to be. Then I'm sitting in my seat and this gentleman says, can I ask you a question? Did not expect the question to be, would you switch seats with me so I can sit next to my friend? And I said, of course. We get to the next stop. We're at the next gate. There's a layover. And, oh, you're going to Tulsa too. That's amazing. Why are you going to Tulsa? Doing a book signing at the Magic City bookstore. Amazing. We're going to Tulsa too. We'd love to come. So I just enlisted 2 people, total strangers, to my book signing
Nice.
in a state I don't live in. That's what we're talking about here is that the magic that can happen when you just allow yourself to be in receivership and you pay attention because there is so much more for us that we don't even realize. And that's why when you're in the how business, you are closing off the possibility for more.
Okay, so I hear you. I have the vision board. I do all the things, but there's still half the time I'm still a control freak. Like half the time. And when I'm in the middle of that, roadblocks get thrown up and so many things happen. And I now when that happens think, shit, this is all my fault. Like I'm too attached. So how do you not get too attached to how you want it to go? Right. Because if what is the process for somebody that's listening to be able to just practice a bit? Like, what would that look like?
Well, the attachment and the detachment is directly also related to Buddhism. And the more attached we are to something, the more we create our own suffering. So detaching from an outcome is also, for me, directly related to getting out of the how business and also the philosophy of the Buddhist practice, which is loving kindness, detachment, peace, contentment. When you feel yourself trying to control an outcome, what I would suggest is pause, recognize that you're doing it, and then acknowledge I'm actually limiting myself if I stay in this mindset.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. I always, my transition out of it is, oh, best possible outcome. It's how I can go, okay, wait a minute, best possible outcome, because that's bigger than me. True. And I am limiting it, or whatever I want or better. Like I try to give myself at least,
Yeah.
if the universe is really listening and I'm messing this up completely, or better, you know,
Yes, and better. And I can only share a little bit of this because it's not public knowledge yet. You know this,
I wanted
Tracy.
to know if we could talk about it.
We can talk about it without naming it.
Oh, oh my
The
gosh, you're going to have to come back then. But
Yes, you will come. I will talk about it once it's public. 7 years
it is
ago,
so big. That's all I can say.
7 years ago, I was attached to a project, and I devoted a good solid year and a half, almost 2 years of my life to it. Absolutely invested, madly in love with the project, and it went away. And it went away for various reasons, as shows and projects do. And I mourned the loss of it and moved on. And about 8 months ago, I get a call out of the blue. Are you the Tricia Brouk who was attached to this particular project? Of course, I said, who wants to know? Right. And that project has since come back to me in a bigger way than how I was attached to it 7 years ago because I let it go. I didn't spend any of my precious time wishing it was different, making myself crazy of how can I make it come back. I simply mourned the loss of it and released it. And then it came back to me and it's with me now and it's going to be incredible. So I inspire, encourage all of you who are listening and watching that everything does happen the way it's meant to. It doesn't mean you have to, you should sit back and be ever. Nothing is about being a victim. Nothing is about happening to you. Everything's happening for you or because of you.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Is there anything for people that are thinking, well, it doesn't matter because whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen? That's not what you're saying, but yet let's clean that up a little bit. Or is that what you are saying?
No, it's not what I'm saying. I don't think whatever's supposed to happen will happen. I think that we co-create. And I think that when you are tapped in to source, God, the universe, whatever that energetic field is for you, that is when the purity of what your potential is comes to you. I truly, without question, believe and know based on my own experience, based on the evidence that I receive every single day. And that goes back to the number 27. I look for evidence that I'm constantly connected to source, whether it's someone who says hello to me, a stranger on the sidewalk, whether it's I happen to look down at my phone and it's exactly 8:27, which is my birthday, or 6:27, which is my anniversary, or 4:27, which is the day my book was published.
Gosh.
On October 27th at 8:27 a.m., I sent a new book proposal to the 5 top publishers in New York City. All 5 of them responded to me within 30 minutes.
I thought that was what we were going to talk about that you said you couldn't talk about. Can we talk about that or do we not talk about that yet?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Oh my gosh, that is so big. But I want to make sure we are putting an exclamation point on the point you're making that paying attention to the signs, that's the presence piece, right?
Yes.
And that do you believe that there are predetermined kind of signs? Let me take out the word predetermined. Like there are some people I know that have, well, when this happens, that's a sign that, I'm on the right path. For you, it's numbers. I've always been an 11 fan, always, my softball number is 29, which equals 11. Like, like our the address starts with 11. Like, so
The page of runes that we turned to yesterday was 111.
that's right. Yeah. So I always know when 11s are popping up. I'm like, oh, this is good. And it just makes me lean forward a little bit more. So do you think everybody has something? It'd be interesting to hear from the audience. And I know a lot of you, it's so great to communicate, with me or around the podcast. So this is a shout out. How do you know? What is your sign? What are the things that you're like, yeah, that's happening? That it's going to be. Does Joe have anything? have to think about.
Joe and I could not be more opposite when it comes to this. I mean,
Very opposite, right?
we're opposite around most things actually, which
Okay.
is amazing. That's why we're such a good
So he thinks
match.
this is all just what do you think?
He doesn't want to know what's possible. He's a hard worker. He shows up, he does the work. I am much more in a state of receivership, and he loves that about me.
Mhm.
He's like, honey, go in the other room and manifest that.
Yeah. Well, Rosemary, my wife, is somewhere in the middle. She's an enthusiastic fan of it. I watch her create things all the time, and she doesn't even know it, right? But she does it, it's just how she moves about the world. She's very positive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know there's a part of her that is even a little cringy about you and I sitting here having this conversation. She's like, really? But she's cheering me on just like Joe
Of
is cheering me on
course.
for
Of
sure. So
course.
I don't know. I would just say this to those of you listening in, you ought to try it. I mean, just for 30 days, if you were to say, all right, I'm gonna buy into this stuff that these two are talking about, and I'm going to get more into the co-creation. What would the daily habit be for the audience to say, I'm going to try it for 30 days? What would it look like? Every day, what?
Well, I can give you a book, Pam Grout's book, um, that I can't think of the title of right now. We will put it in the show notes.
In the children.
It's an incredible book where you literally sit down and she'll give you assignments. It's like being in a laboratory. I want you to think about seeing a butterfly and what the color of the butterfly is. Now, I'll give you an example. I took this to the next level when I read her book. And my assignment for the day was choose 3 colors and somebody that you have met, you're going to see in a location that you've never been in before. So I wrote down the 3 colors and it was yellow, blue, and no, it was blue, red, and green. And I was going to the Mel Robbins show. She was taping her show in New York City at the time. It has since gone off the air. And I'm going to see somebody that I just met at this show. I don't know who it is. I go to the show. I'm looking around. Where are the colors? Blue, green, red. I don't see anything. And they put you in a holding room beforehand so that they tell you the rules, no pictures. This is what's going to happen. You're going to be here for about 3 hours because we stop and start. It's a whole thing. Then they move us into the studio and they sit me next to, I'm not joking, a girl that I had just met, a woman that I had just met the day before at a dinner, who was a social media marketer wearing a red sweater with her 2 friends, one in blue and one in green.
Wow.
Now, that was a new location. I'd never been to the Mel Robbins show. I had just met this person and she gave me all the colors. It's because I was paying attention, however. That's the really important part that I want you all to walk away with. Give yourself the gift of, this is what I want to see today. I want to see a red pickup truck. You can't just say it and then never leave the house. Maybe you might see it on the television, but you can't say, I want to see a red pickup truck and then lock yourself in the bathroom.
I don't think you would have used red pickup truck if you were sitting in New York. But in Tulsa, you're probably going to see a red pickup
That's
truck.
right.
So
That's right.
listen, I want to say that you are so incredibly dialed in and so connected. I'm about halfway where you are, and if you are in the starting block, or if you're wherever you are, I'm just going to say this: just try it. I mean, because there is, I think, so much excitement and energy and joy in looking for those things too, right?
Yes, and it's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's evidence. And that's the thing that's so important is the days where you're feeling down, the days where it's cloudy and rainy and cold, and they're coming in New York. You got to have evidence. So when the evidence is there and you get a wink from the universe and you just say, thank you, I will keep going. I will keep showing up for my people. I will keep showing up for myself. And I'm just so grateful that the universe is showing me that the evidence that we're still deeply connected.
Well, the evidence I'm looking at right now is I've got to get this young lady to her book signing that's about to happen. So we're going to have to sign off. But I feel like we cut it short on the dreamstorming. And I
I'll come back.
really want to unpack the dreamstorming. Maybe we can do like this is what it would look like. What do we guide people through a dreamstorming? Would you be up for that?
I'd love it. I'd
Oh
love
my
it.
gosh, we're going to do it. Listen, thanks so much for listening in, Tricia Brouk. You can find her at triciabrouk.com, the Big Talk Academy. The
And I want to give you all, since we're here to talk about the book in Tulsa, chapter 1 of the book for free, the influentialvoicebook.com/chapter, and you can download that for free.
Sweet. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.